they don't know a lot of things that are going on, and we haven't given them all that, because we're still in the process of looking. I wanted the committee to do a little bit more of the work, and they did do a lot of that. But our next step, and this is the important part here, is really getting the information out, seeing where the concerns are, and seeing how and if we can address those concerns, because those are really big questions. The first part of it is meeting with the staff to address their concerns. And I know Diane and Linda and Tracy went around to a couple different departments and got their concerns on index cards. My goal was to tell them, give me their concerns. In January, I'll be meeting with each one of the departments and looking at their concerns. And I'll be honest with you, the concerns they came up with are right on. They would be the concerns that I have. They were the concerns that we had in Jackson 20 years ago, and they're legitimate concerns about teaching in longer periods and the retention, and what about full-year courses. All of those things were great questions. All of those questions could be answered, but they have to be able to be addressed really in small groups, and every department's a little different. I can tell you right now, there's departments that are just ready to go with block schedule. You have an art department, what better meant, they want to work in 85-minute blocks. They don't want to work in 25, 30 minutes and clean up and get materials up and clean up. Those departments like art, home ec, family and consumer science, physical education, the technology part, those things, the TV studio, they're ready to go right now because those courses are just geared for that. It's the other courses and even the science classes where you have the ready lab. They're ready to go right now. The other courses are things that they have to look at and see how they can teach differently because the education part is just different. I mean, I taught math years ago, and I thought I was doing a good job, but I would not be teaching the same way now. It's a totally different ballgame. You're not showing somebody how to do one problem and then giving them 30 chances to practice. That's not the way we do algebra. It's their geometry. It's much more demanding than we used to do. I mean, it was not unusual for me to have 35 students in the class, but that was easier to teach than some of our classes with 20, where you're differentiating instruction, going in groups, doing all that. That's much more challenging. So to have that extra time to be able to individualize is so important. But I'm looking forward to that because this is where we really get to the nuts and bolts and say, what are your real concerns? Not the ones that you think there might be a problem. What's the concerns and how do we answer it? And again, I was fortunate because there were at least 4 or 5 teachers I met in different subjects. And they had concerns. And after I sat down and it was like, okay, that makes sense. Okay, that makes sense. And that's really where we are right now. That's the part with the staff sitting down with the departments. And the concerns that they had, like I said, were right on. And they were concerns that I would have. But they are things that we can address. Other things with meeting with parents, that's the other part. What the parents think, they need to get that information. And that's really where we're going to generate those meetings in January, where I'll sit down and I'll work with parents and talk about the different things and listen to some of their concerns. I mean, they have concerns right now about things. They have concerns about students going to college and having to pay for remedial classes, paying for college classes where they don't get any credit. That's a concern for them. And we've gotten that from people at the park meeting. That's a legitimate concern. Are my child ready to go into a college? Do they have to go here, or do we have different opportunities? So there's going to be some good questions from the parents. And the same thing with the students. The students have a lot of questions because not all the information is out there yet. And we're looking at different, like you said, different schedules and so forth. But how is it going to affect the students? And again, it's things that we went through in Jackson years ago, very similar. Because anytime you make a change, it's scary. There's no question about it. And to go from all of a sudden things that I've been doing all my life, 8 periods, and this is where I'm going. And it's going to be especially challenging for our seniors next year, if that's the move. And when they're always going to say, well, this is my senior year, why do we have to change it now? And there's always going to be a senior class. And I understand that. And those are things that they have to get out and they have to tell me what the concerns are and some of the concerns are going to be very legitimate. Some of the concerns are going to be something that really will never materialize. So those meetings are going to be very important in January. Additional school visits is needed. As things pop up, we have a lot of opportunities that we didn't have in Jackson before because we have schools around here that can show them what they're doing. The biggest thing when we did it in Jackson is when teachers sat down with other teachers and said, oh, you're teaching it this way? Oh, I can do that. These are my kids. You're teaching algebra? I can teach algebra. This is what I would do. And that really gave, it's different coming from the superintendent or the principal saying this is what you can do, but when a teacher sits down with another teacher, that's really where it comes in. When students talk to other students, and that's an opportunity we'll give them, when students talk to other students in that class, in a block schedule and say, what do you do here? That's a whole different venue, because they're not hearing it just from me, but they're hearing it from them. So really, what we're asking is, don't be making any decisions or any judgments until you get all the information. And that's really the January issue of what we're doing. And really, as far as the decisions based, really, I try to base my decisions on three things. Either direct experience, and I was very fortunate to be a part of that experience in Jackson, starting from scratch. You can make it based on information from direct experience, and we're fortunate. Now, I'll be honest, when we visit Jackson, they only know block schedules. They don't know the changeover. So it's tough to talk to students in Jackson about what do you think about the block schedule, because that's all they know. That's what they've been doing 20 years. When you go to a Lacey school, which is fairly new, they've only done it one year, or you go to Brick, who's only been doing it 3 years, that's a little different conversation. So those students had to adjust from a traditional to block. Those students will tell you, well, this is what we had to adjust, or this is what we had, but we still like it. And really the research, and there's a lot of research out there, and we talk about this all the time, and I've seen a lot of the studies. There's, like anything, if you push the internet button for advantages to block scheduling, you get this much, and if you push the other button that says disadvantages, you get this much. It's the same. It's how you look and what's worked for us. And really, what I look for is schools in Ocean County that have similar students with similar challenges and similar demands. And that's what I really want to take my information from and see what's working there. So that's kind of an overview of it. It's not in as detailed as it's going to be when we have the conversations in January with the parents and the students and the staff more. But that, I think, gives you a flavor for what we're talking about as far as the block. Because it's something that, we really need to look at for our students. And I think it's so important, and I know change is difficult, but if once we sit down and talk about the information, I believe it's going to be very good for us. So that's our presentation. Does anybody have any specific questions for Joe?
Over the next couple of months, we're probably going to have some additional subcommittee meetings of the board to go over all of this and formulate some of our own questions, which hopefully you can get the answers back to us, or maybe even we can have an opportunity to go visit some schools.
I would
know
say
somebody that works in the school.
yeah, we can do that. You can do that. You're welcome to the parent meetings and student meetings. I think those are going to be very important meetings to be a part of and listen to it. And as we've been doing right now, if you have specific questions, certainly ask me, and I'll get you the information. Like I said, I've been through this. It's important for them to go through that process too, not for me to just say this is how you do it. But I know some of the pitfalls when we first started. Little things like when you do the schedule and the student takes Spanish 1 and Spanish 2, and the computer program puts Spanish 2 the first part of the year and Spanish 1 the second half of the year. Can't do that. You have to do it differently. So there are things now in the computer programs that hear that. And when you look at a schedule, for example, if you do 4 and 4, you weight the schedule so you don't have math, science, English, history one semester, and then physical education and all your electives the second half. So there are ways to balance that, and those are things to look at.
And the other thing is, there's going to need to be some lead time for this, right? There's going to be some training with staff.
Oh.
There's going to be some reworking of courses and schedules and all that stuff. So backing off from September, assuming that we wanted to do something in September, when do we need to make the go or no go decision?
Well, I would say because of the electives that you're choosing from, I think you want to be making that decision no later than February. And I will tell you this, and we are so far ahead of where we were in Jackson as far as staff development. Because I'll tell you, our staff does a lot of these things that we need to do in the block. When I was in Jackson, we weren't able to do it because cooperative learning was the buzzword. That was like, oh, you work in these groups. That was the buzzword. Now, our teachers do it all the time. They differentiate instruction. They do that. They work with technology all the time. They do many of those skills. Their biggest thing is being able to change 2 or 3 times during it and being able to pace their classes. That's really the key, is going to be the pacing part. And that's something that they'll learn as we go. I also told them that we would be open to looking at possibly half days somewhere toward the end of the year if they need to, and have half of the student day and do some staff development there if they need it. They've had opportunities, and I can only tell you my experience in Jackson was when we did the professional development, very few people signed up for professional development when we first started the block schedule. Around October, November, we had a ton of people wanting to do professional development because they knew how it was going to hit. But like I said, we're so far ahead now because our teachers are doing a lot of the things that we need to do, where in Jackson, we were just starting to do that because that was the trend then. Cooperative learning was the trend then. Now, our teachers do that. They just don't do it in the time frame that they could be able to do it.
Thank you. We'll be talking about this over the next several months, I'm sure.
Good, looking forward to it. Thank you.
How about we give Dave a couple minutes to refresh it, and then maybe you can go through your report.
A couple of quick things, minor just on the agenda. There's a resolution on the agenda just to approve the audit that was presented tonight by Mr. Gannon, 1415 audit. No findings, no corrective action. You see a change order on the agenda related to the school improvement project. This change order impacts MTES. What it's for is when they came in to do some of the lighting there, there was some pre-existing conditions that we had to kind of work around. So the first part of that change order is to essentially do a workaround for some of the lighting we had installed in MTES. And the second part, at the district's request, we've requested that the contractor put in 4 variable frequency drives, or VDFs, which is HVAC equipment. It helps control, gives us better control over the new HVAC equipment that's going into the building, and it'll also help with energy efficiency once everything's up and running. So that's on the agenda for approval. And lastly, just a quick negotiations update. The 2 negotiating teams met on December 2nd to continue contract negotiations. It was a long session that night, but it did result in some progress. And there are still a handful of issues still on the table that we need to discuss. Our next meeting with the mediator is scheduled for February 11th. He may have an opportunity to meet with us in January if his schedule opens up, but as of now, we're slated to meet on February 11th to continue negotiations.
Back again. Just a couple things. SOAR program is on the agenda tonight, and that's our alternative program. And just to just quickly review with the public, that's the program that Mr. Adams did a presentation on previously. We did review that program with the county superintendent, his office. We made some small changes, and with those changes and the things that we have, I'm recommending to the board that adopt that program for the time being, to see if we can help some of our students who are disaffected get back on track and get them to graduate. Kevin's Kids, Mr. George, anything that you want to say quickly on the Kevin's Kids? Obviously, I know you were the point man, you did a great job, but as Don said, and the people up here, a lot of people obviously in Manchester chip in for that program.
It truly is inspiring and just a true community effort. And to thank the board and the administrators and the principals, the committee members who work tirelessly on behalf of these families, buildings and grounds, custodial staff, community members, senior citizen groups. Everybody just did such a fantastic job. We helped close to 200 families and over 400 kids enjoy Christmas. And one little heartwarming story I'll leave you with was earlier this week after the pickup on Sunday, one of our elementary teachers was doing some journaling, and a little boy started to cry, and the teacher went over and said, "Is everything okay?" And he said, "I'm crying tears of joy because my family decorated the tree last night." And that was the tree that was donated on Sunday as part of Kevin's Kids. And so it truly is an inspiring and awesome thing to be a part of, and just incorporates everything that's amazing about this community. So it was fantastic.
Yeah, I know there's a lot of stories like that, and And I think sometimes we tend to think that, oh, well, all these kids are getting the toys and that, but it's a lot more than that.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's some toys in there, but when you see kids getting winter coats and things like that, that's really special. And I know a lot of board members were involved. We had some rappers up here.
I was pretty impressed with this.
Rapping with the W.
Yeah. Pretty good.
I was pretty impressed with Mr. Payne. He had a customized gift wrap.
Yeah.
On his own table.
Yeah, it's called Mrs.
I think I was being staff saying that I had a wrapping tracker on my phone, and I think that table put out some serious gift wraps.
Faith, I think, has been doing it for a lot of years doing it. And my ability was putting the toys in the big bag and wrapping them.
I think you got a couple of labels mixed up.
Yeah. We did have a superintendent's advisory committee the other night, and we had a very nice showing from parents there. I want to thank them for coming out. We did a little presentation on our Alice, which we'll be working with the police in January also. And as you know, unfortunately, in the news, you see more and more of some tragedies out there, and it's important for us, for our students, to be prepared and our staff to be prepared in case of that. Yes.
Excuse me, would you just explain for everyone's benefit what
the Alice?
Alice is, so
I'm sorry.
people aren't guessing?
I did forget that. We did mention this early on in the year, but just as a quick note, Alice stands for, I hope I remember this, Alert, Lockdown, Inform, Counter, and Evacuate. And basically what it says is right now, we are in the process of we do AL. We do an alert and we lock down. But as the police and in the training we have shown, that lockdown is good in certain cases, but not in all cases. And the perfect example is if you know somebody is coming in, an intruder's coming in that door, and I'm here, you have two choices. I could sit here and pretend like he's not going to be here, or I could run out that door. And I think most of us would say, I'm going to evacuate. So there are options to be had by our students and our staff, and giving them those options will increase our chances of being successful. I won't use the other words, but the bottom line is you need to have options. We need to give our staff options. We need to give our students options. And there's no one size fits all. In a matter of working through as we said, the alert is important. The lockdown is very important, but we also talk about barricading doors and so forth. We talked about some different things with Regional Day School because some of their students are not going to be able to be as mobile and evacuate. So there's additional things that we're looking into to be able to barricade those rooms. And you're really looking, the response time was like 5 or 6 minutes for the police, and that's phenomenal. But when you think about it, unfortunately, some of these shootings are started and over in probably 2 to 3 minutes. Sandy about 4 minutes. So 5 or 6 minutes is just too much. So the police are obviously on board with what we're doing. They're very supportive, and we're going to obviously tap into them when we talk about doing parent and staff workshops in January again. We gave the staff an overview in September. Alex and I kind of split up the staff, and we did that. But it's a matter now of starting to implement. We'll probably start at the elementary school. But again, it's a matter of giving staff and students options to do it, and that's really the important part. But thank you for reminding me this morning. Park scores, Mrs. Pedrosa and Mrs. Saracino and Mrs. Moore, Mr. Adams set up a parent workshop to talk about the park scores. Our park scores are in with the high school. The high school scores were in, and the individual student reports were in, and we actually gave those out to the parents. They were mailed out, and we planned it so 2 days after the reports have gotten to the parents, then we had the parent meeting to try to describe or explain what the park scores were. Now, we just received the 3 to 8 scores for park, and when they will be going out of the first of the year, they'll be going out in January, and once those the test scores go out to the individual parents, we'll have a parent meeting within the next day or two to do that. Because it's important once the parents get that to be able to interpret what it means. It's a totally different report than we got from ASC or HESCO or anything else. So it's important once they get it to be able to have access to information on how to interpret that score. In January, we'll be giving a report to the board about our test scores in general over the whole district. That's each school and those scores. That'll be given in January. You knew that, Mrs. Pedrosa, right? Okay. That's the scores that we're going to be doing in January, and that'll be to the board. Some schools, like to be honest with you, some schools are waiting till January to give out any test scores. We felt that once we had the high school so early, we were able to turnkey it, so we did do that, and we'll run the 3 to 8s coming up after the holidays. ROTC evaluation, very quickly, we had an evaluation ROTC, and just to say, there are a number of categories. You either get an outstanding, you get an above average, an average, a below average, or unsatisfactory. In none of the categories were we unsatisfactory, and none of the categories were we below average. Interesting, and I think it's a tribute to our school district, is we had one outstanding category, and that's the highest mark you can get, and that was the school system's support of the program. And I think that shows a lot. And there are, every time we get the evaluator come in, he's very impressed with the parent support there. We do it in the gym, and a lot of the parents are there to support the ROTC program. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4 above averages, 2 averages, and 1 outstanding. They were very impressed with our group and our instructors too. They actually singled out one of our instructors as being an outstanding individual. So kudos to the ROTC program and what they do, and thanks to the parents and the district for their support. And we already did the board member recognitions.
Are there any committee reports?
There's something I'd like to address about it.
Any public participation on agenda items only? Seeing none. Any old business or correspondence? No. Very good. Moving to section 1, action items, A minutes. 1 and 2, need a motion and a second.
I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Dack?
Yes.
Mr. Candelo? Mr. Oliver?
Abstain.
Mr. Bermuda? Mr. Griffin?
Yes.
Ms. Walter?
Abstain.
Mr. Pete?
Yes.
Mr. West?
Yes, D, travel, number 1. Number 7.
Make a motion. Second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Dack?
Yes.
Mr. Candelo?
Yes.
Mr. Oliver?
Yes.
Mr. Bermuda?
Yes.
Mr. Griffin?
Yes.
Ms. Walter?
Yes.
Mr. Pete?
Yes.
Mr. West?
Yes, C, we're going to vote to accept the annual audit report that was presented this evening.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Dack?
Yes.
Mr. Candelo?
Yes.
Mr. Oliver?
Yes.
Mr. Bermuda?
Yes.
Mr. Griffin?
Yes.
Ms. Walter?
Yes.
Mr. Pete?
Yes.
Mr. West?
Yes. D, the change order, which Mr. Lorenzen spoke of.
Make a motion. Second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Dack?
Yes.
Mr. Candelo? Mr. Oliver?
Yes.
Mr. Bermuda?
Yes.
Mr. Griffin?
Yes.
Ms. Walter?
Yes.
Mr. Pete?
Yes.
Mr. West?
Yes. Section 2A, administrative, numbers 1 through 3.
I'll make a motion. Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Dack?
Yes.
Mr. Candelo?
Yes.
Mr. Oliver?
Yes.
Mr. Bermuda?
Yes.
Mr. Griffin?
Yes.
Ms. Walter? Mr. Pete?
Yes, 1 and 2, no number 3.
Mr. Webster?
Yes. Do you have some comments to make, Mr. Pete, about the program?
My major concern with the alternate program is the cost analysis. I'm just not sure that it's physically where it needs to be.
Okay, thank you for that. The personnel, numbers 1 through 31.
So moved. Second.
Roll call, please. Roll call, please. Oh, you did that? I'm sorry.
I just want to wait a little while. Ms. Hudak?
Yes.
Ms. Candelo? Mr. Oliver?
Yes.
Ms. Bermuda?
Yes.
Mr. Griffin?
Yes.
Ms. Walter?
Abstain on number 1, yes on all the others.
Mr. Pete?
Abstain number 1, yes on all others.
And Mr. Webster?
Abstain on number 1, yes on all the others. Congratulations. And just for the record, the abstentions by several of us, we have relatives who work in the district who are at the elementary level and could be subject to either supervision or performance evaluations by Ms. Nickel. So under the new rules of engagement that have been handed down by the state, we're no longer allowed to vote on that kind of stuff.
Nothing personal.
Yeah, thank you.
C, student personnel, numbers 1 through 4.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Yak?
Yes.
Mr. Carrillo?
Yes.
Mr. Oliver?
Yes.
Mr. Peters?
Yes.
Mr. Griffin?
Yes.
Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Pete?
Yes.
Mr. Webster?
Yes. D, special services, number 1. Roll call, please.
Mr. Yak?
Yes.
Mr. Carrillo?
Yes.
Mr. Oliver?
Yes.
Mr. Peters?
Yes.
Mr. Griffin?
Yes.
Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Pete?
Yes.
Mr. Webster?
Yes, section 3A, finance, numbers 1 through 5.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Yak?
Yes.
Mr. Carrillo?
Yes.
Mr. Oliver?
Yes.
Mr. Peters?
Yes.
Mr. Griffin?
Yes.
Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Pete?
Yes.
Mr. Webster?
Yes. Public participation on any items?
Dan Staples, MTEA. Just a quick comment. It's 10:02, so I'll spare everybody the soliloquy. But I've been coming to these meetings for a long, long time, and I noticed, especially back in May with the insurance issue, that this room was crowded, packed to the gills. People were actually behind the Board of Ed. We were behind you while you were doing the meeting because there was no place to stand. And then June, obviously another big turnout, and now it's kind of a trend. It's not really an anomaly. Tonight, I noticed the fire code for this room is 64. There was more than double that in this room, which creates a tremendous safety hazard. And also for the comfort of the participants, all the stakeholders that come here, the educators, the staff members, the parents, the administrators, everybody, they kind of deserve to be comfortable. And those VFW guys that came and gave that award, they were 80 years old. I was talking to the one guy who did 30 years in the Navy and has been retired for 27 years. They were standing and they were quite uncomfortable because they didn't have a place to sit. You'll notice in the front there used to be 4 rows of chairs. I notice now there's only 2 rows of chairs. Those chairs sit empty, and as they're just about empty now because people aren't comfortable sitting there. And it's kind of like if you get here early, you get the Mr. Lokerson seat, which is nice and comfortable. He's chilling. If you come here late, you end up in the bullpen with the Maloneys, and you're kind of back here feeling like a second-class citizen. So I think for the sake of us all being on equal footing at a board meeting, and to want people to come and participate, we have a newly refurbished auditorium that seats a lot of people. It's got comfortable seating. It's got great lights. I know this is kind of a cozy room, but it seems that it's kind of not useful for this, and it's probably not even legal for this. So I guess my question is, respectfully, what's the process to change venue? I mean, is that something that needs to be officially requested, or to have that considered for future meetings?
Well, we'll take it under advisement.
Yeah, we'll take it under consideration. The only thing, again, in most cases, we like this venue because it lends more for an easy conversation, whether when you're in the auditorium, whether you're up on the stage or not, it doesn't necessarily. But if there's a lot of people, obviously, the board will consider,
Okay, 'cause I mean, I go to board meetings all over state, Mr. Webster, I'm sure in your position you probably do as well. And I've been all over there, and you go to Toms River, they have an auditorium set up, and if 700 Toms River residents want to show up to a board meeting, that's their right, and they shouldn't be made to feel uncomfortable. And most other places I do, they seem to make accommodations, and I just feel that here there weren't accommodations made, but somebody who's been working in the district for 30 years and is getting ready to retire shouldn't be looking around saying, I got a bum knee and I have no place to sit.
Thank you.
Noted, thanks.
I'll make this short and sweet. Hello, my name is Faith Borelli, and I'm currently a junior. After reading several articles and viewing multiple social media posts, it has been brought to my attention that our teachers do not have a contract. As a student, I need to start off by saying I am honored to walk into class every day knowing my teachers bring home around $1,300 every 2 weeks. Does not complain nor express it in the classroom to students, but still shows up every day willing to help and teach us. Teachers are continuously looking over our children as if they are their own. If a student starts to act funny or notice he or she has been very upset lately, without thinking twice, we'll go to guidance and tell them so that they make sure their student is okay. Parents may raise their children, but teachers teach them. In this day and age, it is sad to say that students actually spend more time with their teachers than they do their actual parents or guardians. I fear that by these teachers not having a contract and struggling to put food on their tables, it is going to affect my future education. By teachers taking home less, that leads to them having to get a second job most of the time. In doing that, it does not only affect the flexibility they can stay after school with other students and I, but it does take away from their family time and fully being a part of a child's life. Teachers are the face of this earth. Think about it. You would not be sitting in the chair you are sitting in right now with the title you have right now if it wasn't for a teacher. My dream job is to be a teacher, but seeing the way our teachers get treated makes me terrified for how the future will be, especially because my overall dream is to come back and give back to the school I graduated from. The school that shaped me to the young lady I am today. The amount of love and care that our teachers give to the students is remarkable and goes very unnoticed. From my understanding, teachers get paid a salary only until 2 p.m., but there's been multiple times I've stayed after school until 5, 6 p.m. getting extra help I need. That is 3 to 4 hours later than they get paid. My respect stems deep down to when I was going through some things at home, or even having a rough day, although our teachers are fighting their own battles, stopped and heard me out. That is not their job, that's what comes with the job. No teacher has to coach long hours after school or do extracurricular activities with the students, but for the love of the students, they do. I'm not saying give our teachers millions of dollars in a raise, but give them something they can live off of. They earn their spot in the world, and because of them, they can change the world for some kids. It is Manchester teachers that inspire me to go out and fight for what I believe in and to be brave enough to present to you tonight.
Thank you. Thank you.
Anything else?
Yes. I too will comment on social media the last 2 weeks, but I'm not even going to comment. I just want to give a kudos or appreciation to Mr. Adams and our safety officers at Manchester High School for quelling the situation that occurred last week at their school. For a parent to actually say that Mr. Adams will suspend their student, their child, for dancing is ridiculous. And me being in law enforcement for 30 years, dealing with mass movements just like we do, that they do, every day when 700 kids are moving through the hall, I think they took the bull by the horn, they put the situation under control, and they deserve our applause. Thank you.
Anything else? Is there anything else from the board, Mr. Bates?
Yeah. Obviously, when we meet again in January, we have our regular meeting on January 6th, I believe, Mr. Lorenzen.
Yes, the project.
Is that the date we all agreeing to? January 6th?
I think so.
Coming in? You can come late.
We're going to come with
I'd like to ask the board if we could tonight, let's nail down a date in January where we get together for a board retreat to discuss a lot of things I think we need to discuss. Some focus, goals, where we're going, what we need to be doing, what we need to know, those sorts of things. We keep talking about it, and life gets in the way all the time. So if we can nail down the date tonight, I think that would be great, because then Mr. Trethway can plan all his meetings with parents and stuff around it instead of us having to try to fit our meetings in around his meetings.
The meeting's separate from the regular meeting?
Yes, meeting separate from our, just a board retreat for us to go over, look at our goals that we established last July, and what we're doing with those. Mr. Trethway's goals, what he has for the year, how we stood with those, we're looking at that. And also just to get our focus unified. I think we're getting really splintered sometimes. Do that. We can nail down a date for that. I think that would be great for you.
Well, I don't think we can nail the date down tonight, but certainly tomorrow,
Yeah,
Dave,
we send something out.
Okay.
suggest some dates perhaps.
That are conflicts for you.
And then we're gonna have to advertise for that too, so we need to be cognizant of that so that we have a lead time.
Yeah, you'll probably have the reorganizing of our regular.
Our regular board meeting's on the 20th, I believe.
It's whatever that third
We
Wednesday.
haven't really said it, but.
We will approve the meeting schedule
Yeah,
next.
so
next
we're
month.
gonna.
We need to make sure we both have the board members that evening, that the board members available too. I wouldn't want to have a retreat where our friends are.
This is true, but I don't want us to wait like we've been doing, and then calendars get filled up and like, oh my goodness, there's stuff that's coming in.
We'll send it out, just give us the dates that you can make.
Gotcha. Okay.
Anything else?
Have a good holiday.
Motion to adjourn.
Everybody have a good holiday. Thank you.